does actually get passed, whether this reference gets passed or this actual object gets passed. If the reference was passed, the value would have changed to 3 because we updated the value that to which the reference was pointing to 3, but it is still 2. So does that mean that Java is passed by value? Inside the code, our reference is not getting changed. This thing, when we assigned a new object to the same reference, why did it not pick up this new object? If we retest this, you can see that line number 10, if it Java was passed by reference. Hello friends, welcome to the video, and in today's video we learn a very important topic and a very important interview question, which is whether Java is passed by value or passed by reference. It is a very important interview question and it is one of the core concepts that every Java developer should know. So let's get started.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
So let's first learn what is passed by value and what is passed by reference. Suppose we create an object called test. So our object is called object test. Now when we pass this test object into a method, suppose we call our method as test method and we pass this test object in this test method. So when we do this, test reference is living on the stack in which it is getting created. So when we start our Java process, there are some stacks that get initialized. Every thread has an own stack and we have a common heap where all the objects live. So this new object which is got created, it is living on the heap. Okay, and suppose this is our main thread. So this test reference is living on one of the stacks. So basically the reference lives on the stack and the object lives on the heap. When we call a particular method, what actually gets passed, whether the reference gets passed or the object gets passed, what does it do? It gets passed. Let's try to understand it with a more concrete example. For example, you create a string object name and you give your name to it. So for example, I give it SPS and now I call the test method and I pass the name argument into it. So this is my stack in which I am running this code. So my name reference is created here and this is the heap of the Java process where this string is actually created. So when I call this test method, this is the reference and this is the object. So what does actually get passed, whether this reference gets passed or this actual object gets passed? This is the important question of passed by value or passed by reference. Let's try to understand it with the help of code. So in this code we have created a pass by value, pass by reference primitive int example. So here you can see in our main method we have created a primitive int value and then we are passing it to the modify method and we are changing its value to 3 and then we are trying to print it to see what happens. So let me put some debug points and let's try to see what happens. So when we run our code, we can see that right now the reference value has the value 2. If we try to see the details, this primitive value variable holds the value of integer 2 and now we are trying to pass it to the value method. What gets passed, whether the value 2 gets passed or the reference value, value reference value which is living on the stack, that gets passed. This is the important question of whether Java is passed by value or passed by reference. So if we go inside this method, we can see that initially this input variable was having value 2. After evaluating this, its value has become 3. Now when we reach line number 8, we can see that the value is still 2. If the reference was passed, the value would have changed to 3 because we updated the value that to which the reference was pointing to 3, but it is still 2. So does that mean that Java is passed by value? Because the reference is not getting updated. Right now we can see that 2 is getting printed. So we created a reference value, assigned it to, passed the reference to a method, changed it value 3, but still 2 was getting printed. So this is the case for when we are talking about a reference for a primitive, which is int, not an object. Now let's take an example of a string variable. Now in this case our reference value is a string object. So earlier it was a primitive, in this case it is a string object, and string is a special class because string is immutable. So whenever we try to modify the string object, actually a new object gets created and it never changes its value because it is an immutable class. So again let's try to debug and see what happens in this case. So when we start the debugger, we can see here that our value reference has value of 2 in string form, and the address of this reference is 691. That is the memory location of this address. Okay, so when we pass this string reference to the modify method, we can see right now, if we try to evaluate this, the address is still 691. Okay, after we execute this line number 12, now if we see, the address of the input reference has changed. It has changed to 693. So basically it has created a new reference, and the reference which is created at location 693 is pointing to string 3. So after this, when we come out of this method to line number 8, value reference is the reference which was placed at location 691. It is still pointing to the string with the value 2, which is placed as 691. The reference which was pointing to string 3 is placed at 693 location. So we can see here that we passed a reference, and inside the modify method, when we created a new object or we try to assign a new object to the reference address was changed. So if we execute this, we can see that it is still printing 2, which is the case of an immutable object. Now let's see the case of a mutable object, which is our third example. So in this case, we have taken the value reference as a string builder object. It is a mutable object. Okay. Again, what we'll do is, if we try to debug this program, right now we can see that the value reference is at the location 831 before it goes into modify method. Okay. Now if we send it to modify method, it is still at the location 831. But after line number 12 executes, what do we see? The address of this reference inside the method has changed, 821. And now if we come to our original main method from which we called this modify method, and if we reach line number 8, we can see that here the value reference is actually still 831. So we can see that our reference is not getting changed. Whatever we do inside the code, our reference is not getting changed. It will still print 2. Now let's try to do one thing. Instead of creating a new object, let's try to modify the existing object. So what we'll do input dot append, and let's append 4 to this input reference in the modify method. Let's see what happens now. If we execute this again, right now the address is 813, value is 2. If we reach to line number 13, and right now still the value is 2 and the address is 813. After line number 13 has executed, the address is still 813, but the value has changed. Now when we reach line number 8, here it recognizes the reference from its address, which was its original address, which is 813. and we can see that inside the modify method the address had not changed, which is because in this case the value that will get printed is 2-4. Why did it print 2-4? Because inside the modify method the address did not get changed. So you can see that from the first example we were trying to infer that whether Java is passed by value or passed by reference, but we were passing this reference, it was not changing anything to the primitive, so we thought it is passed by value. But in this example, when we are modifying this and appending 4 into the end of the string, the changes is getting reflected, 2-4 is getting printed. So does that mean that it is passed by reference? If it was passed by reference, then when we did this thing, when we assigned a new object to the same reference, why did it not pick up this new object? If we retest this, you can see that line number 10, if it Java was passed by reference, we passed this value reference from line number 7. When we executed line number 12, we assigned a new object to that reference. Why did it not print the new object? So it is not clearly passed by reference also. What actually it is, the address of the reference, which we saw in this case, that right now the address of the reference, which is 813, the address of the reference is passed by value. So basically string 2 is also not passed, this value reference is also not passed. What is passed in another method is 813, which is the address of the reference. And whenever you do new, you are creating a new reference. So as soon as line number 12 will get executed, you can see right now it is referring to the address 813, but as soon as line number 12 will get executed, you can see that it is using the object using the reference 821. Earlier it was 813. That is why your changes will not get reflected, because you have not passed the value reference, you have just passed 813, which is the address of the reference. So now you can see here again it is 813, and 813, the reference which is at 813 is still pointing to the string 2 or the string builder 2. That is why it is not getting updated. But when you don't use new keyword, you simply append anything to the end of the variable or try to modify your object, because you are not using new keyword, the address will remain same, and since the address will remain same, it will actually reflect your changes. So you can see we have seen it here again also, that as soon as line number 13 gets executed, right now it is 814. After execution it is still 814, and when we reach line number 8, it is still 814. Therefore the changes will get reflected. This is the real answer of this question, that neither the value, Java is neither passed by value, it is neither passed by reference, but basically the address of the reference is passed by value. This is the correct explanation. So in other words, the address of this reference, it is 814. This actually is getting passed when you call a method. This is what is getting passed. So it is not this reference name that is getting passed, it is not neither the string or the characters in the string that are getting passed, but the address of the reference is that is getting passed. And the references live on the stack, the objects live on the heap. So the address of this name reference on this main method stack, if you are running it on the main method or any other stack, maybe it thread 1, if you are running it in another thread, whatever stack you are running your code, the address of the reference where it is living on the stack, that is getting passed to the methods. We can also test it for our string class. Suppose if we don't do this new method here, but instead we do input is equal to input plus 4. So in this case, what will get passed? Let's see. So right now the address of this value reference is 691. Okay. So when it reaches line 13, right now it is still, if we evaluate this, it is still 691. But after executing line number 13, if we try to see what is the address of this input reference, you see the address has changed. It has changed to 750. Since string is an immutable class, whenever you try to mutate it, it will create a new object and the reference will point to the new object. But why will this change not reflect to the original method which called it? Because you did not pass your value reference, you passed your address 691 into this method. Whatever changes are made, those are made to the reference which is living on the address 750. It is pointing to the new string 2-4. But when you reach line number 8, from line number 7 you did not pass value, you pass 691. It is still holding 691, and the value which was there at 691 is not modified. What is modified is the value at 750, so it will print 691. So friends, it is a very important and very conceptual point whether Java is passed by value or passed by reference. I hope this example was able to clarify this to you. If not, please post your questions in the comment section, and I will be very happy to elaborate on this and clarify your doubts. It is just a humble request from me to please like this video and subscribe to my channel, because this gives us the motivation and this gives the algorithm a push, this video a push, so that it can be shown to more and more people. And that is the fruit that we want to bear from all the efforts that we put to create such videos. It is a very important topic. Every Java developer should be absolutely crystal clear with it. I will post the code for these samples in the comment section. Do check out this GitHub code and run it yourself. Try to understand it yourself. If you have any doubts, I'll be happy to respond in the comment section.
Why do the people who love